I was always a tomboy, but I was always very in touch with my emotions. So I was like, I feel so fluid in that.
Right.
Is that gender fluidity, whatever else? And so when the word non-binary came out, I was like, that's actually kind of, it's like, it transcends any of that. Like, it's just me. I literally, when people be like, so who are you? What are you? I'm like, I'm Kelly.
Yeah.
I'm just Kelly.
Hi. How are you doing? Oh my gosh, welcome to She Comes With Baggage.
Thank you so much for having me.
Of course. It's funny because we've been actually sitting here talking for like the last 20 minutes and I'm just like, I can't keep asking questions before we start recording.
Yes.
But it's just so good to see you and reconnect.
It's nice. This is our second time actually just like getting to physically see each other and hang out. Yeah.
Which is crazy because I feel like I've known you and been following your journey on social media for what we were just talking about, 5 years now.
Yeah, it's 2019.
Yeah.
That's why I was like, I think I've known you since pre-COVID.
Yeah, I think so. No, absolutely. I've been following your wedding photography for a long time. You've just always been such an inspiration. The way that you do storytelling through photography is just gorgeous. And then also, I'm sure we're definitely gonna jump into it and talk all about your creativity and your storytelling. But I really admire you, and I'm so excited that you have you on right now.
I'm just a mirror to you because we were just talking about how we like to connect, emotionally and empathically.
Yes.
And that's all my work is based on, and that's all that you're about. So thank you for even like seeing me in that light.
No, appreciate you. I appreciate you. And I feel like this podcast alone is just a way for me to really have that quality time with people and kind of get to know everyone on a deeper level. And I'm like, what's a bigger icebreaker than coming on and talking to me about your baggage? So,
yeah, I know, right?
We're going to be real good friends after this.
Yes.
We go from online friends and then we met at a bar for like 5 minutes.
Yeah,
and then
for 5 minutes.
Here we are.
Are you going to do aftercare? Like, is there actual like...
I'm going to cry.
Like, just cry and we just like... Yeah.
That's funny. Well, tell me a little bit about where you're from. What was young Kelly like?
Oh my God. Young Kelly was fierce, courageous, curious. And like you look at any of my photos going back to like even 3 years old, I was such a tomboy.
Okay, yeah.
I loved sports. I loved holding a ball.
Okay.
So I've always been an athlete.
Got it. Okay.
And a very curious person. Like I would be the type of person that would run into the ocean and my sister would freak out and like try to save me. And she's like, I'm trying to save you. And I was like, I don't need saving.
Okay, I love it. Are you from California originally?
Yeah, I was born and raised in Mission Hills.
Okay.
And then I grew up in Palmdale.
Okay. So LA based.
Yeah, LA based.
Wow. I feel like I've never met someone who's actually from Los Angeles who lives here.
Really?
Yeah.
You are a rare breed.
You are a rare breed.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, okay. Now it's my next question.
Yeah,
that's all I got. Usually I'm like, what brought you here? No, but that's amazing. And do you feel like really connected to like the West Coast? Do you feel like that's also a part of who you are and your upbringing?
That is actually a very good question because I think I've been so blessed by being an athlete and then being able to travel.
Yeah.
I would go to the East Coast for a basketball camp and then I went over to Italy to play soccer. And so I've been always this travel person. So to identify myself as a West Coast person is actually very like I don't affiliate myself with that.
True.
I feel like I'm more European.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, because you've been traveling, right?
I love Europe.
Yeah.
And I feel very connected. I feel like that's more home.
Okay.
But
yeah. And you travel a lot with work, which I definitely am excited to chat more about. So I know that, you have the athletic background. Was there any like early memories that you have with your hobbies or maybe your creativity? Because now you do a little bit of everything. You're a director in your own series. You're a photographer, videographer. You do everything, right? So is there an early memory that you have of being connected to that?
I have a beautiful memory of, I was always an emotional kid.
Okay. Me too.
Yeah. Yeah. We were talking about that. I was so emotional. I would cry all the time. And most of the time I realized it wasn't just my tears.
Okay.
I was very empathetic. Mm-hmm. And so I think sports really helped like that type of release. But then my dad, when I was 13, I think it was 13, he gave me his old like film camera. Mm-hmm. And before that, prior, I would always write. I was always doing poetry and journal. And I'm like, okay, this might be my medium of like my expression of self, right? And then I would try to paint. I was a horrible painter. And I was like, nope, that's not good. Like, this is not a good medium to like actually express myself. So my dad gave me his old camera. And I remember photographing like some of my siblings and nature, and I was like immediately in love.
Really?
And so I started just like photographing that. And then in high school, I was obsessed with photographing my friends who were couples.
Okay.
mix that in with Death Cab for Cutie and like play that soundtrack over as like some emotional like photos of my friends kissing. I was like, yeah,
that's it.
This is exactly what I want to be doing.
Wow.
Of how
that's
I express
amazing.
like connection.
I love that. And I love that it's always been there. Your creativity has always been there. Even, you know, for me, I look back on it and I always had it. I loved drawing. I used to draw Dragon Ball Z. That's what I drew all the time. Like I would just sit and draw Dragon Ball Z. Interesting.
Wait,
and
what specific character though?
All of them. Literally every single one of them. It was either that or some kind of car. I wanted to draw cars. And it was just my outlet of...
That's awesome.
I don't know. It's just like my way of escapism in a way, even from a very early young age of not even necessarily understanding what therapy was, but in a way, creativity was like my therapy. I would express myself in the art, which is kind of fascinating how you can see that evolution of creativity over time, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
You're reminding me that when I was little, I would draw alien heads.
Okay.
And crosses because I was very Christian, but all I drew.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting?
And Dragon Ball Z.
Stop. Wait, we're going to have to...
No, I didn't draw Dragon Ball Z, but that's hilarious that you did draw that.
Isn't it funny that you were drawn to certain type of drawings?
Yeah,
it's like
alien heads. What the...
Yeah, you're into that, I guess. You know?
I love aliens. I actually do.
Yeah, you're like, and see, that has
Very
been an
cosmic.
evolution as well. Well, that's amazing. And I feel like just watching your creative journey is just so cool to be like, that's always been a piece of who you are, which is really cool. Tell me a bit about your family. Are you close with your family? Do you have siblings?
Yeah, I'm one of 5.
Okay.
I have 2 older sisters.
Okay.
And I have 2 younger brothers that are twins, so I'm right in the middle.
Okay, yeah.
And growing up, we would fight all the time, obviously. And then once we got older, like all in our 20s, like 30s, we got really close. So we're pretty close. And I love my mom and dad. I had like a falling out with my mom when I first came out. Mm-hmm. That was like really, because we grew up very Christian.
Okay, yeah.
And I was very Christian, had my promise ring and everything, like good Christian girl.
Yeah, in your drawings.
And in my drawings. Jesus. I love Jesus.
I'm done.
Yeah, once I went to college and then I was like, oh my God, I think I'm queer.
Yeah.
Came out to my parents and my mom and dad were like, what the heck?
Yeah.
Like, how can somebody so devoted to Christ, like, be such a sinner? I was like, well, aren't we all?
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Right?
Was that something hard for you to unpack, or was it?
Oh, definitely.
What was that experience like? What did you go through a lot of self-discovery before you came out to them? Or
ooh, good question. I was on my journey in college of figuring out what was my relationship with Christ. And I actually had one of my majors was religion. Mm-hmm. So I was studying Buddhism, I was studying Taoism, I was studying like different versions of Christianity, and I became obsessed with Buddhism. And that opened the door to reincarnation and spirituality and and Hinduism.
Yeah.
And so I was having this whole, like through college, like everybody else in your early 20s, or I was having this whole identity crisis with religion, which was my whole identity growing up. Was like I was always Christian.
Yeah.
So that opened me up for sure. And then that's what I feel like connected me with my first girlfriend.
Yeah.
And that was terrifying.
I feel like the first girlfriend, the first partner for anyone really is just, it's a whole self-discovery journey in itself, especially being queer, but also coming from a more religious background as well. So I'm from the South, the Bible Belt. Tennessee. Yeah. I'm from Tennessee originally, so for me, religion was involved in everything, not even just family-wise, but also society, teachings, education.
Your whole environment.
It's your entire environment, and you don't know that there is a reality or an option outside of that, because that's all everyone teaches. So in a lot of ways, that is what life is, because there's never even a teaching that there is something else out there, right? So I remember, it was crazy. I remember very similar to that. I started questioning a lot of things religion based when I was old enough to kind of understand, and I was starting to realize that sometimes, and it's not everything, it's not every time, it's not all religion, but sometimes I was realizing that religion was being used as kind of like a conduit to oppression or hating people for certain ways. And to me, I was immediately like, as an empath, similar to you, I was like, I don't like this. This doesn't feel right to me. You're teaching the teachings of love and compassion, and then simultaneously using that to put people down. That doesn't, there's a disconnect. And so I, similar to you, started becoming obsessed about learning of different religions. I started looking online. I remember listening to LimeWire back in the day.
Oh my God.
Listening to LimeWire and obsessing over religion, being like, oh my God. And it just went through the phases of learning every single religion. I kept my own journals about it. And yeah,
you're such a student. I love that you research and you study and you're curious.
Yeah,
and
very curious.
That's what I'm starting to love starting to realize is I love people that are curious and ask questions.
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of, to each their own, but a lot of the Christian people are just like, okay, that's it. That's how we live life.
Right.
And it's like, no, let's ask more questions.
Yeah. And if all the questions lead you back to the same original destination, I think that's beautiful. I feel like that's amazing. Yeah. Absolutely. But I do think it's worth exploring that. And also, as you know, you travel constantly. It's hard to travel to a different destination and completely disagree with everything that they said.
Yeah, you'll be laughed at.
Yeah, and I think about this too. I know we're going on one, but I think about this too. I was born in Tennessee. I was raised Baptist, but I always think to myself, "Were you the same?"
No, I was Christian, but Baptist is like hard.
Harsh. Yeah. It was a lot. It was a lot. And so I think about this too. That sometimes religion is also based on where your environment is, right? So if I was born in Asia, and in Asia I was taught Buddhism from the time I was growing up, I would be Buddhist, right?
Yeah, totally.
And so for me, it's like you are being taught these things based on your environment. So who am I to say go to somewhere else and tell them they're wrong and tell them they're wrong? It just doesn't make sense to me. So I'm just more curious.
You're so funny because that is like most of the whole of what's happening in the Middle East right now.
I think in a way it's like speaking different languages to whatever higher power someone believes in. But I think that it's...
Oh, well, absolutely.
Yeah. I want to talk about your upbringing, but also your identity, your ethnicity. Tell me about your background a little bit.
So my mom is Italian, and we found out she's Italian and Brazilian. So that's pretty cool. And my dad's German, Scottish, and Cherokee Indian.
Okay.
So a part of when I was growing up and like actually really diving into different religions, I realized and I was drawn to who am I? Because as Americans, I think we get kind of lost in who we are, and it's very rare, or at least most of the Americans, they are blended. We're a melting pot, and then we also get totally disconnected from our ancestry.
True. Yeah.
And so I was diving into my ancestry and I realized like I have a very strong lineage in the Cherokee Indian community, the tribe. And so I was like, that's what I want to focus on. And I just like dove into that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that was a big part of I think I would like to say my awakening process to new identity and new self.
Yeah. And that was part of your self-discovery when it comes to gender identity as well?
When I was coming out, I first came out to my parents as sapiosexual.
Okay.
And sapiosexual is the attraction to one's mind. So I always knew I was like, I'm not just a full lesbian.
Okay.
Like, I'm attracted. Like there comes some nuances and some microisms when it comes to that.
Yeah.
And I had this beautiful experience where I was like, I still don't even identify gender-wise as a full female. I was always a tomboy. But I was always very in touch with my emotions. So I was like, I feel so fluid in that.
Right.
Is that gender fluidity, whatever else? And so when the word non-binary came out, I was like, that's actually it's like, it transcends any of that. Like, it's just me. I literally, when people be like, so who are you? What are you? I'm like, I'm Kelly.
Yeah.
I'm just Kelly. But then I had this amazing, beautiful experience following into my ancestry line and like the Cherokee Indian and getting very connected to the indigenous communities here in Americas, that I had the opportunity to go to Standing Rock when there was the No DAPL and protest there.
Okay.
During the pipeline. That was so amazing because we were with the Sioux tribe and the Lakota tribe. The week that I was there for like 2 weeks. One of the weeks that I was there, they invited, and this was historical, they invited all the different type of indigenous tribes to Standing Rock.
Standing Rock, okay.
And for the first time, I got to actually meet a lot of my Cherokee Nation.
Okay. Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, I'm with some of my ancestral line. It was like so beautiful because I was having amazing dreams and like connection to Earth and like that family.
Yeah.
And what's so beautiful about being there was you were enveloped in the community and they made everyone go to work like you're part of the community.
Okay.
So one of the tribal leaders came up to me and he looks at me and he goes, "Are you military?" And I was like, "No, I'm not military. I'm a photographer. I want to be a press."
Yeah. Okay.
And he goes, "You are very strong, like warrior." And he goes, "You are two-spirited." And I was like, what the heck does that mean? And he goes, two-spirited, you act like you play both roles as male and female.
Wow.
And I was like,
wait, that gives me chills.
I know, I'm about to cry because I was like,
actually gives me chills.
real singing for the first time. And so it was really special because I was playing that part for my community.
Yeah.
I have never felt so seen within my family in that sense. And so with my Cherokee family, I was like...
Wow. And it's amazing that it's not even just a physical presence, but it's an energy, right?
It's all energy.
That is what was so beautiful about it. And I think that I love about you is like you are creating mediums for all people to be seen and celebrated. And I feel like that's so beautiful. I feel like there's a moment in people's lives where it almost seems to pivot where you've being seen for the first time. And I feel like that is something that you can't take away from someone, is being seen. And I feel like that is so beautiful that
well said.
that they saw you.
They saw
and
me.
They felt you, right?
Yeah, because I was just standing there like, what's up? And he was just like, you're military, you're very strong, like warrior. And I was like, oh my God, it was amazing. So that's where I'm like, I like to say that I identify as two-spirited, but it's only based off of like who I'm speaking with and who understands that. So if I was around Indigenous community, then I would say I'm two-spirited. They would actually even know. They would just see me and they would know.
Yeah.
But if I were to speak to other people, then I'm like, oh, I'm non-binary.
Yeah. Are you able to share, for people who are listening in and might not be familiar with two-spirited and or non-binary, can you share some of the similarities and the differences maybe?
The similarities would be mainly that, well, what I love about non-binary is that I believe no matter what, when it comes to the 7 hermetic principles, we have both polarity of masculine and feminine, right? Mm-hmm. Whereas non-binary says that that kind of transcends and it's blended. There's nothing.
Okay.
And I believe like that's what it comes down to. It's just like there's the masculine and feminine, but it's blended so amazingly that it's just you are a soul. Yeah. You are that version of who you are, right? Yeah. So I identify as that to our queer community because that's, part of something that we establish as a really significant label. Mm-hmm. And so if I'm talking to the queer community, then I'd say non-binary.
Okay.
If I'm talking to the Indigenous community, they don't understand that word.
Okay.
It's two-spirited.
Yep.
They see both masculine and feminine.
Yep.
And that is blended or however you want to manifest it. Mm-hmm. And you are part of the community as that.
Yeah.
So that's where I'd be like, if I'm talking amongst any Indigenous, community, then I'm like two-spirited.
Sure, yeah.
Even when I went down to the Amazon, a completely different Indigenous community, they saw me as that two-spirited.
Yeah.
There's a different word for it, and honestly, it's escaping me because it's in Kaipo, but...
No, but isn't that, it's just beautiful and fascinating. I think that's why I'm so passionate, honestly, I think that's why I'm so passionate about traveling, because it really, once you travel and you're subjecting yourself to different cultures, different religions, different walks of life, different traditions, everything that you can think of, you can't go back from that. You can't unsee and unlearn the things that other people are learning every single day. Absolutely. And I feel like that's what, my introduction to cultures that celebrate third gender or celebrate, and celebrate and third gender's similar topics. And then you also, and then you come back here and you're seeing people in the trans community particularly being hateful. People are being hateful towards them and saying that this is new. And I'm like, no, since the beginning of time.
This is literally going back. If anything, we are afraid. Oh my God. This is like a passionate topic for both of us. Yeah. Just like being in the community of like, it's fascinating how closed we are of understanding our history.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because if you ever know our history from the dawn of time, literally that's what,
Exactly.
It's us. It's an expression of self no matter what.
Yeah, absolutely. Human, And I think it's interesting too with, and I talk a lot about that on here, is the introduction of labels, which I do think labels can be useful in times of building community and ice breaking. And let me give you the XYZ of who I am. When you meet someone new, what's your favorite, what's your favorite color? And I'm like, okay, now me too.
Wait, what is your favorite color?
Blue.
Oh, periwinkle.
Oh,
because it's non-binary.
I'm dead, not periwinkle. I was like macaroni orange.
Right? In the 64.
That's
yeah.
I would die if you actually gave like the color number, because that's you as a creative.
I didn't even know that
I don't
know.
I'm
totally going to.
The queer community, we are trying to find this sense of self-liberation, wanting to explore fully our self-discovery, and we want to be seen and heard. But then in a lot of ways, we almost force ourselves back into a box by putting all these labels on ourselves and then forcing ourselves to abide by what these rules apply to us as for these labels, right? So like for me, I do identify as a lesbian, but I also demisexual, meaning I would connect to people's emotions. And I can only connect them on an emotional level. So there's a nuance. Yeah. But then I also find a balance between masculinity and femininity. but I don't necessarily have a gender dysphoria. So it's very interesting, right? But it's like, you know, no, I'm not going to just unpack all of that with someone brand new. Yeah. So labels help in that example. But I also, 100%. I don't like that labels necessarily force ourselves to, it almost reduces your opportunity to keep exploring yourself. Yeah. And I think that even for me, I've been out for 10 plus years, but I also feel like I'm discovering new terms, new things that are even opening new up to me.
Versions of yourself.
Exactly.
Right?
Absolutely. It's fascinating. And I think that's what's so beautiful about humans in general, because I think there's so many layers to every single one of us.
Well, this is what I love about the queer community, because we take that to the forefront of like, hey, don't forget that you're not just this like masculine, or you're a male and acting in this masculine role.
Right.
We literally like shove those boundaries of just like, no, like you can literally blend and flow, and however that wants to manifest itself, right?
That's
like,
beautiful,
And that's what I think sometimes when you're first coming out, you need those labels to really like identify yourself.
Yeah.
One of my good friends says it so perfectly. It's like a prescription or a subscription of like who you are, right? That's helpful to help identify yourself. But then once you realize like you don't need it, it's okay to like, it's not going to be a permanent thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
I think about this all the time where I'm like, we're living on this floating rock, and we just like decided we could do anything with our lives, and we decided to give ourselves taxes and like currencies that we have to listen to and like work all the time. That makes no sense. Why are we making these rules for ourselves? Like all of it's made up anyway. So we might as well just enjoy ourselves. Yeah, that's a whole other hour
podcast.
But it's true. I feel like the minute that we allow ourselves to just really I don't know, seek what makes us feel good, and without shame, I think it really opens a door for people to be seen,
absolutely,
and celebrated.
I really believe this, and just this is based off of just my own personal experience. But I loved that I grew up Christian as a beautiful one-on-one into life, because it was discipline. It shows me the different beautiful stories and how to love.
Yeah.
And then after I realized, like, okay, that's my first beginner's book, and now I want to dive into more.
Yeah.
And that's why I feel like people get stuck on the first book out of fear, because it is fear-based.
Yeah.
Or just out of like comfort.
Yeah.
Of just like, I know I don't want to learn anything more. This is fine for me.
Oh, yeah.
And that's what I also believe as labels are in general. It's like, this is a one-on-one of who you are.
Yeah.
But like, as soon as you start diving into more nuances of who you are, there are other different labels.
It's almost to me speaking only, it's like an addiction of like, I love self-help books. I love leveling up my Sims character of whoever I am. I'm like, I want to, what's next? Who else am I? You know,
Become
and it's
God.
just interesting.
Become goddess.
Right. And
you're everything.
Everything and all at once.
That's my favorite movie.
Yeah, it's a great movie, actually.
Movie.
I want to ask you, so your pronouns, you go by she, they.
She, her, they.
She, her, they. Okay.
Yeah.
Are there any, there's this conversation around pronouns constantly, not only just for, not only outside of the LGBTQ plus community, but also within the LGBTQ plus community. Totally. There's a lot of pushback and a lot of confusion. Is there any misconceptions about the use of pronouns that you, where you just wish people could understand a little bit more?
Oh, that's actually a really good question, because to me specifically, I'm only using these pronouns for other people.
Okay, yeah.
If they really need them.
Okay.
But for myself, I don't care.
Yeah.
I'm Kelly. I'll always be Kelly.
I love that.
That's like, but if you really need to know, then it's me being a people pleaser and just being like, whatever you want then.
Okay.
And at one point I would ask somebody like, well, how do you feel my energy is right now? And they're like, a them. And I'm like, perfect. Or he. Yeah. I got he a couple times. And I'm like, okay, well, whatever makes you feel great.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
Like, that's what I think when you are starting to, we always go through this whole pendulum swing of like, I need to know everything and all, like, I need to really hold on to these. And then I'm like, I don't care.
Yeah.
I become indifferent.
It's true. And again, it goes back to that energy thing, and what makes someone feel good. And I think for me with the misconception around pronouns is if I can do anything to make someone else feel more valid in who they are and how they feel, I'm going to do that.
Oh, I would
absolutely.
love to
There's
do
no
that.
question for me. There's absolutely, it doesn't affect me at all to see someone how they want to be seen.
To change a word. Great.
And
to make them feel seen, then oh my God, that's the beautiful
That's
thing.
all I want to do. So I'm like, please, and inform me. And I think the thing is you mentioned this earlier, around fear-based conversations, fear-based curiosity. And I think sometimes it's okay to be curious with one another and ask questions, and that allows dialogue to flow back and forth to where you can actually learn from it.
Absolutely.
And sometimes I think right now, specifically in our current climate, it's scary to ask questions and feel like you're going to get a rejection. But I think we have to be able to have conversations like this to learn from one another.
Out of COVID, I feel like the labels had this whole boom. Mm-hmm. Did you feel that too?
I think so. Yeah.
Like they were never really a big thing. Pronouns were, at least in my environment. Mm-hmm. And so after COVID, it was like, oh, I love the sensitivity that's around this.
Yeah.
Even with everything that was happening after COVID, of like COVID in general, BLM, our queer community, and everything was going through this huge hypersensitivity that I think needed to be shining a light on.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because shining the light was another nuance of shining to be seen. Mm-hmm. So that's why it's like, I get the sensitivity.
Yeah.
But also, like, that's a trauma response in some way.
Yeah.
To some aspect. We always go through that. I'm hypersensitive because I have a trauma response.
Yeah. And
so once I heal that,
then I'm
going to be okay with
Interesting.
things.
Yeah. No,
at least that's the way that I'm looking at things.
I see that. And it's beautiful. And I think, again, it's just people feeling fear of the unknown and fear of not feeling comfortable with this is everything I've been taught in my 101, and then I don't want to expand after that. But once you kind of once that there are more information out there for them to learn, they're like, ooh, it's way easier for me to stay in my box. It's way easier not to become compassionate. It's way easier to just stay, right? And I feel like that's how for me and people in Tennessee, because a lot of people use the excuse, well, oh, they come from an older generation, or oh, they're from the South, or oh, yeah, but true. But it's also a decision on whether or not they want to learn.
100%.
You can learn from it. Google is everywhere on the planet.
It's everywhere, but also it comes down to you actually just made me think of this when you were saying this, based on the fear-based thing, is like, I think people fear that because they're afraid to be seen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right?
Oh, that's true.
You know, that's what it comes down to.
Yeah. Well, because I think, a lot of the conversation around the backlash that's happening to the queer community right now, my first question, if someone says something that might be degrading or homophobic or whatever, I said, how many queer people do you know, and how many have you had a genuine conversation with?
A genuine conversation.
Like a genuine
highlighting
conversation.
On that,
Emphasis. Because I guarantee you that if you sit down with someone and you sit and talk like this, you're going to find more things that y'all are alike about than different. And I think that is the biggest thing that's happening right now, is this silencing of certain people's identities and stories, when that's not going to help anyone grow or find community. I don't know. It's an interesting time. It's an interesting time.
Yeah. Do you ever feel that sometimes when someone's afraid to ask those questions is because they are afraid that they know that they do have the similarities?
Kind of like a projection in a way?
It's 100% a projection and a mirror. Someone that is like, anti all that. Yeah. And they're finally like having these conversations. Yeah. And then when we really soften and be like, oh my God, we are so similar, they're going to be like, shit, am I gay?
Yeah. Well, I've recognized,
we all are.
sometimes, not always, but sometimes the people who present themselves in the most hateful way are typically battling with an internalized homophobia. It's less of me, it's more of them,
that's
and it's
only
interesting.
Been my experience too.
Only. And I'm curious with homophobia, is that something that still to this day is something that you've ever experienced? I'm sure it comes...
So where we travel, there was a beautiful part, honestly, East Coast, Bible Belt. Yeah. I've had some homophobia, but it's really beautiful because I realize I know how to disarm very well.
Okay.
I had an experience in a bar one time. This big military guy comes up to me, and he saw me like with a bunch of girls. I was shooting a wedding. Okay. And I was with the bridesmaids, and he comes up to me and he's like, "You're cock blocking, you fucking dyke." And I was like, "Excuse me?" And he goes, and then that you're freaked. And I looked at him, and he's like this big military guy, right? And I just look at him. I was like, "I'm cock blocking. I can literally be your wingman, man."
Yeah.
And he goes, "What do you mean?" And I was like, "Well, which one do you like?" Yeah. And he's like, "Well, a couple of them." I'm like, "Let me introduce you." I was like, "Are you gonna be nice though?" Yeah. And he's like, "Yeah, okay." Okay. Yeah. And then I introduce him, and they end up hanging up the whole night, and then he ends up getting my number, and then I'm like, "No, bro." Yeah. But like, that's the thing is like, I love when I am with that, because I want to like really be that type of catalyst to change their perspective.
I love that. It's really beautiful. It's not easy to do that. I feel like it's really not, because and a lot of times they are saying and doing these things for the reaction and they probably, you took them off guard because they were expecting you to get defensive or triggered.
They wanted to fight.
They wanted to fight.
He came and he literally was like beefed up. I was like, wow, he's about to hit.
Yeah. And so when you really just twisted it, he was like, oh, okay, well, and it's
have you ever done on your travels?
What, like disarm in a way?
Well, in a way of like experience homophobia.
Yeah, all through. And I think it's interesting too. as someone who travels, you travel sometimes to places where it's illegal to identify as LGBTQ+. So for protection purposes, sometimes I have to be more straight passing or straight assuming for a safety concern. Or, don't hold hands in public, no PDA. It's not always in destinations, but I will say that even in places that have different reputations or there might be more laws in place that are criminalizing identifying LGBTQ+, is almost always a huge, huge community there. There's queer people that exist everywhere, regardless if it's legal or not. And a lot of times the places that have the most laws in place are the ones that have the biggest, brightest communities, which is very interesting.
It's always that polarity.
Yeah.
I experienced going to Tel Aviv.
Okay.
And that was really interesting because they have a big queer community there, but there's a lot of pink washing.
Okay.
That's happening there. So it's also like being safe or being careful of going to these spaces that they pretend that it's like okay.
Yeah. Okay.
And then it's not.
Yeah.
So have you ever come across that?
I think not necessarily pink washing. I guess it's interesting because people ask me this question all the time. If there's ever been a place that I don't feel safe or safe enough going to, right? Yeah. And I said, and this is a true response, that I think the most unsafe I've felt is in the U.S. I think consistently.
I agree.
Yeah,
no, 100%.
Okay,
I totally agree. I love that you said that.
It's true because a lot of places they go, they want to welcome you and they want to show you full hospitality. And a lot of times they're open armed. In the U.S., you can travel somewhere, and as soon as you present, that's the reaction that people get. And they're more frontward facing. Even if in travel they don't all agree with lifestyle or decisions or whatever, they're not going to go up and just threaten to beat your ass.
100%.
In the U.S., I don't know why. I mean, I do know why, but they're encouraged. And I'm like, why are Americans like this? And people are always shocked when I tell them that. And I'm like, no, the places that have experienced homophobia the most, discrimination, pink washing, even in prides here, which we do need funding, but at the same time, corporations can sometimes take advantage of that. It just goes on and on and on. That's a whole thing. Right? It's a whole thing.
But that's so accurate.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, with someone that's maybe listening in and maybe they're starting their own self-discovery, whether that's through gender identity, whether that's through sexual orientation, whether that's through anything self-discovery, what's a piece of advice that you would give them?
I would say trust yourself and find your community. Trust who you are. You're made uniquely, specifically you. And definitely find your community. And what I realized too is I just recently did a documentary that talks about this, and it's about Mask on Mask, and it literally highlights a little like corner of our lesbian community or not even lesbian community, just mass presenting queer people. And I was reading the comments and just like crying because all of them are so amazing, but some of them are just like, I didn't even know that this was a thing. And that's what kind of breaks my heart is like the representation is horrible, right? Yeah. But trust who you are, even as unique as possible. Find your community, but don't totally gravitate to like, I need to be this.
Yeah, true.
Totally still be yourself. I hope that is like, I know that's easier said than done, but I really hope that someone takes this and just be like, I'm feeling these things. I don't identify with anybody around me. Just be you. Yeah. Lean into that really hard. And I know that if you don't have a safe environment, you have to go and find a safe environment. Yeah. You know?
That's so true. I actually watched the series for the Mask versus Mask, and it's beautiful. And it's to your point. I think once we label ourselves as being this, then we start to conform to the gender norms and the queer norms and all the things that come with that. And then it's almost like, okay, well, now if I'm attracted to this person, I'm not allowed to be because other people aren't. And I'm like, no, the attraction is
so crazy.
Yeah.
It's so weird.
Like, it's interesting, right?
Yeah. How we are literally diverting back into heteronormative. Like, when I'm hanging out with other mass people and they're like, yeah, bro, like, dude, I'm like, we're now acting like gay men or no straight men like I don't understand that. I don't identify this like, don't call me bro, call me like friend. It's okay.
I get this all the time.
I know
all the time. Well, also I'm a little sensitive girly on the inside.
Same.
But
same.
But yes,
same.
But I feel like sometimes because I typically date people more feminine than me. I'm usually I'm attracted to people more feminine than me. So that then people see me as being the more masculine one. And I'm not. I'm like, okay, sure, I guess I dress a little bit more, but
because you wear pants?
Yeah, right.
No, I'm not kidding. I dissected this already when looking at your Instagram. I'm like, people, because I bet you she's as like, in her masculine too, but it's just she expresses herself feminine.
Yeah, right. And so I think it's very funny when I'm around other masc presenting people. They automatically assume I'm one of the bros. Yeah. So they like punch my arm, high five. And you're like, ow. And I'm like, ow. I'm like, oh,
Can you hug me?
And I'm just a girl. I'm just a girl. But it's so funny how that happens.
God, it's wild.
And it's not even just the friendly things like, the high fives and the fist pump. Oh, that's fine. I can get through with that. But it's also interesting when sometimes more masc presenting people pick up on the misogyny and the patriarchy, and they start to act in a very toxic masculinity way, which I was like,
this
no,
is a
please
great
don't.
topic. I love this topic so much because it's like so fascinating to me of like, I just see everything as this pendulum, right? Because everything's fluid, and I just see all this pendulum. And so it's almost like I know where you are in your journey. Yeah. When you start getting too overcompensating on one side, it's like you still haven't found and are okay with just balancing yourself out and who you are. Yeah. So if you are being in your toxic masculine self, you still are not actually letting your feminine side be seen.
Yeah. I mean, the key word's toxic, right? It's not the masculinity side.
I actually, the other day, one of my good friends, I'm trying to stay away from the word toxic because it's such a trigger word that I want to say just in their low vibrational state.
I love that.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. Like the toxic masculine and feminine, that's such a trigger. Yeah. But it's just like you are in your different vibrational self of like not allowing one to be seen.
Well, I think it's interesting because once we put this label as together, toxic masculinity, that implies that masculinity is toxic.
Exactly.
And
it's not.
It's not. It's not. Masculinity is beautiful for both men, women, and non-binary people. Masculinity is an energy. It's a fluidity in itself. It's not tied to gender. It's not tied, so I feel like the minute you tie it to a negative connotating word, like toxic, it's like, that's bad. So I like low energy.
Yeah,
I think
just like it's a...
Yeah. Do you ever feel as being someone who maybe sometimes could be, you're more in the middle of like femininity and masculinity, do you ever feel pressured to kind of abide by gender norms or do people pressure you on that?
Great question.
Okay. You're like, this morning. You're like,
I mean, it's only in relationships.
Really?
Because I'm mass presenting.
They're like, you get the spider.
You
get the spider.
And mostly sexually. Like, of just like, you are this masculine person, you play this role. I'm like, oh my God, no.
Yeah, right. No, absolutely.
Please do not. And that's why, like, again, what stemmed my documentary was like, I can't even act in my feminine when I'm around feminine women that are attracted to me. And it's so sad and dismissing of who I am. And I feel only half seen.
Okay.
So it's like half seen. But yeah, so that's what like hurts the most is like in the relationship aspect. But then in public, it's quite fun because I see mostly the confusion.
Yeah.
Of like, you're pretty, but you're masculine, so I don't know how to do it. Yeah. And so it's fun to like see which way I can lean into. Do you ever feel that where you can actually feel yourself leaning into the feminine and feel yourself leaning into the masculine?
I don't want to say code switching because that almost says it, but it kind of is, right? You kind of code switch.
Reacting into the balance of someone else.
Well, also it's in psychology. I love psychology. If you haven't noticed, I'm literally obsessed with it. But I think it's fascinating how people in general mirror each other. So even when we got here, I noticed that we did it when you showed up today. You started standing like this, and I immediately did this, and I was like, I'm mirroring.
That's it's a connection, though. Yeah. That's what's so beautiful.
And I think it's beautiful. It's a great thing because like once you start, and for people who are listening, mirroring is essentially when you want the other person to feel comfortable or you want to immediately find a connection. Your body language starts mirroring them. Your slang, your language starts kind of mirroring them. But it's usually a sign of like, I want to feel relatable, and it's interesting how that happens,
I love that you came from a psychological aspect of that, whereas in a different language, it's a tantra connection aspect. So that's literally a white tantra exercise of mirroring and feeling connected to that person because you literally energetically start syncing up.
Oh, wow.
It happens quickly or it happens when you are intentionally trying to do that, right?
Right. Fascinating.
So that's what we do every day. Yeah. We are connecting to people and then we're feeling their energy and where they're at in their percentages of masculine and feminine and then counteract that.
Interesting.
Isn't that cool?
It's so cool.
At least that's what I really believe energetically we do.
Yeah. Speaking of energetically and languages and how we talk to one another and everything, what is your love language?
I love communication.
Communication? Yeah, we talked a little bit about it before, but I was like, I loved what you said. So I was like, I'm bringing it up again.
I know that that's not like part of the 5 love languages, but communication, I think if you communicate with somebody, it's like you really love them and care for them. But words of affirmation.
Yeah. And we were saying before, I feel like they kind of coincide.
Yes, you said
words
that,
of
actually.
affirmation and communication, because communication and words of affirmation don't always have to be with words. It's also words of affirmation doesn't always have to be compliments. It's also just how do we sit and communicate with each other on a deeper level to where we can understand each other, which I think it's really cool for you.
Yeah,
to say
well,
that
you
too.
said that, and I never even thought of that as that connection. I was like, wow, that's beautiful, because that's 100% words of affirmation.
Yeah,
touch,
absolutely.
Love touch.
I love it.
And quality time.
That's what we said earlier. We're like, we're just going to sit here and be like in our feels the whole time. I'm here for it.
I love it.
Also, we have matching tattoos.
I know.
We noticed this before. Isn't that cute?
Again, because this is our second time seeing each other.
I know. So I was like, let me examine you. I had to tell. It's so
I'm like,
funny.
yes.
We're like, same chains?
Yeah.
Same.
No, for real. I love that so much.
I want to talk about your creativity and your powerful storytelling. I know that you mentioned that you have always kind of had that as your background, even when you were younger. Where did you start really leaning into your storytelling? And you were like, this is truly what I want to do. Not even just photography, but filmmaking, all of it.
That is, okay, beautiful. Because I think I'm still going through that type of like space.
Okay.
I mean, I've been a wedding photographer since like for 15 years.
Yeah.
Before queer or before LGBT same-sex marriages were legal. So that was like, oh, I want to tell that story because it's the untold story.
Yeah.
So that's
half seen. I think before you said half seen, I'm like, that could be a future docuseries for you of some kind. Just calling it half seen and being like, that's what it is. I don't know. I was just thinking about it.
3 years from now, you see
half
that.
Seen. Yeah. But sorry, go ahead.
But that's what I loved. I realized I love telling the untold stories.
Yeah.
So it's like almost being an activist in a sense. I was called an activist a while ago, and I'm like, what? I didn't even think of that. I'm just telling the untold taboo story. And so when I was told, I was like, oh, you're this wedding photographer, but you're like this activist storyteller. And even going to Standing Rock was like, I was deemed as the community's storyteller for the Cherokee community. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. And I always had this this bucket list dream of going to the Amazon. And when I went to the Amazon, I got asked with my best friend to basically teach young Indigenous women there to be filmmakers and tell their story. Because as women, they have their own women's warrior ceremonies, but they don't get to actually document them. Okay. Because only the men of the community are able to film it. So that was when I was like, there is such a story within the story. And that's when I think I started leaning in more of that. Okay. And then realizing that there's still there's so many beautiful stories to be told in our queer community because we're changing drastically. Yeah. So then when I did my documentary, I was like, oh, this is going to be continuous of telling the story. I think honestly since then, which was 2 years ago I filmed that, I started leaning into that type of storytelling. Yeah,
it's beautiful. I mean, I think it's beautiful too because photography to a certain degree can be a male-dominated field. I feel like storytelling in a lot of ways, whether it's cinematic or writing, whatever it is, a lot of these are male-dominated fields,
books.
right?
I forgot about that.
Yeah, and that's something we're definitely going to get into too.
Sorry. I was I forgot. Even writing, then I started writing.
Exactly. And I think a lot of these are always traditionally, I guess, in a way, have been seen as male-dominated, but they're not. I mean, they're really not, but you're like being that trailblazer for, right? Is that something you're just like, that's what I want to open the door for more?
Ooh, I don't think I never thought of it in that way.
Okay. Yeah. Just curious. I didn't know.
And thank you. That's a good question of like, I know that I have my perspective and thoughts are very different, obviously, as everybody else's.
Sure, of course.
And so I want to highlight like those type of stories the way I see it, because it is coming from a very empathetic and a very spiritual way.
Right. I love that.
So,
and I also love that your storytelling, it started with weddings, but it also comes from a compassion. Why is love so important in your storytelling?
Love is the best energy of all. Like it's the most... It's fascinating because there's so many versions of love that I've witnessed over the years. But I just love. And that's so cringe to say, but truly there's so many different versions of it that I don't think we are even aware of. Yeah. You know? and we're just starting getting into that. And so that's why I just want to be around it. It's the best vibration.
I love it. And it's to your point before, it is the highest vibration. Love is the most important thing and the whole purpose of life. I feel like I don't know what the purpose of life is. I don't know what we're all doing here on this floating rock, but all I do know is I'm most connected to love.
Yeah.
And I feel most human and most really me when I'm giving and receiving love and seeing people differently. So I feel like
absolutely.
I feel like in a way, it's to me that's like the purpose of why we're all here.
Yeah, I agree.
And I feel like I don't know. And even in a weird way, I feel like hate could be even an extension of love, right? In
emotions.
A sense, it gets an emotion. And
I love emotions.
It's very fascinating. I'm like, I could do this all day with you. I'm like, I literally
we love emotions. Your Pisces is coming through.
We were talking about it earlier, how you're very in with the cosmos and you're very in tune with your astrology sign. Is that correct?
Astrology, yeah.
Okay, so I'm an Aries and Pisces in 4 spots, so I'm very Pisces.
I can't believe that. Yeah, you have like a stellium, stellium is only 3 signs, but you have 4 signs in Pisces.
Yeah, so I cry a lot. And I was saying to you, Titanic is my favorite movie, and I cry every time, and I watch it at least once a month. And
do you really?
I really do. I'm not even exaggerating.
That's awesome.
Christine will literally play the theme song in the other room, and I'm like, I'm coming. It's a love movie.
What
it's
makes
like
you love most about it? Because it's also a tragedy.
I think it's because love is the whole premise of it. It's not even, it's love and it's hope, and they were trying to go to find a new life for themselves and finding love and finding happiness. It was all this, it was a journey of love and self-love. That is the whole reason people are moving to start a new life together.
Yes.
And so for me, I'm like, wow, it's so beautiful. I don't know.
Well, I'm wondering also, since you're an emotional person, that I believe like when we love something, there's nostalgia attached to it, right? So where were you when you first saw it? What was that nostalgia?
That's a great point. I actually watched it with my mom for the first time, and it was, I mean, I don't know how old I was, but it was when it first came out. But I went and saw it in theater.
You must have been like 10 or 9 or 10.
Yeah, I was very young. Very young. Yeah.
I was 12.
Yeah, so I think there is a nostalgia to it. Yeah. What's your favorite movie?
Oh my God, I just was asked this the other day. I really, really love I, Origin.
Okay.
I love Interstellar, Matrix.
Okay, so it's
and Everywhere All at Once. Like all of them have this whole theme of like different dimensional selves and past lives, because I'm really, really into past parallel lives.
So do you believe that there is multiple versions of us living all at the exact same time? And I'm curious, now this is none of the cards at all.
Yeah,
none of the cards.
Let's get into
it. But do you feel it's possible to jump in between? Or do you think...
We do it all the time without it
with the vibrational states? Or
yes.
Okay, I'm curious.
Okay, it's funny because I'm saying this with confirmation. This is something that I've actually studied and done since I was 20 years old.
Okay,
I did a lot of my own past life regressions. I've dived into the schooling. I've done quantum healing, hypnotherapy. Beautiful. So I've actually witnessed many people and myself go through these vibrational states and witnessing them go through their different parallel lives as well as my own. So that's why I'm saying it with that. But this is, again, subjective to anybody who doesn't believe it. But I really believe that everything is frequency and dimensional.
Yep.
Or in those dimensions is frequency.
Yeah. No,
and
absolutely.
we are vibrational beings. So we literally can change that type of frequency with our own mindset.
Yeah, I agree.
And our own heart and environment.
Yeah.
I think we go through each one of our parallel lives and we channel them as well.
Interesting.
So like in what I really believe sometimes, this is going to get so interesting and controversial maybe, but
I love it.
I believe since I feel my masculine and feminine that I'm channeling multiple versions of who I am that are masculine and feminine.
Okay. Yeah.
And so and you can tell when someone's just channeling their masculine, it's like, what version of them are they just channeling? What aspect of or vocation are they?
Right.
So it's like...
It kind of makes me think back to when the chief leader, is that you mentioned, had asked you if you're in the military. I wonder if in another life you were.
That's what it was. So it was really interesting because I think I was like, how long ago was this? This is 2016, and I was in my like mid-20s, and I've already dove into a good like couple dozen of my past lives. Most of them were military.
Interesting.
Most of them have always been part of a war. I've always been in this type of commander position or military.
Interesting.
So when you said that, I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And I've never talked about it with anybody, not even like my family,
Wow.
even when I was going through the session. So when he saw it, I was like, wow, he sees that aspect of
immediately.
me. Yeah.
And that's why also I feel like spirituality is just so fascinating to me. As I love it. And just religion as a whole. I just feel like everyone's wanting to find that piece of energy, whatever it might look like, I guess.
So what, let me put this back to you. What do you feel, even in your dreams, especially since you're multiple Pisces, they are big dreamers. They're very connected to those dimensional states. So what dream has been recurrent for you that feels so real?
I think it's interesting.
If you want to get into that.
No, yeah, I love that. I feel like my dream state, I don't remember a lot of my dreams, which is very interesting. I don't dream at night, or I know you do, but I just don't remember them ever. But
it's because you immediately go into this vibrational density.
Maybe.
Well, that's what I believe in, but yeah.
Oh yeah. But it's interesting because people always say, you're a dreamer, right? Which I'm like, yeah, I'm a dreamer, but I do make all my dreams come true. So doesn't that make me a realist? Ooh, period. Yeah. I was like, and they immediately changed the subject.
But also, yes, that both
because
are living 100%.
I also find it interesting. I feel like, again, this is probably going off topic, but I think people ask me all the time, what do you want to do with your life? I'm like, everything. Like, I want to do
everything all at once.
Everything. Because why not? Because also we're literally here with a limited amount of time and nothing is guaranteed before and or after.
Absolutely.
So why wouldn't I do every single possible thing, even if I'm not good at it? I want to try it. And just like this podcast, I'm like, I was absolutely terrified of speaking on camera. And you've seen our content. We never talk on camera.
Yeah.
And so I was like, I want to do it. I want to try it. And so here I am. And I'm like, this is a whole new vibrational state for me because I feel so energized when I leave these conversations. So it's fascinating. I don't know.
That's beautiful because I feel like you're totally an extrovert or ambivert.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And a manifesting generator. I know you were talking about human design before. I was like, I really feel like you're a manifesting generator, which I'll tell you afterwards.
Okay, yeah. I want to take the test that you were mentioning. I'm a huge believer in manifestation and positive energy and law of attraction. I feel like it's something that's tangible, and I have seen it happen time and time after again to be something to be real for me.
Yeah.
I know it's hard for people. Some people would hear it and believe it if they have never experienced it. But for me, it's something that I'm like, I can put this into practice and immediately find results and see changes in my life. And so it's fascinating.
Do you realize that's your focus too?
What?
Most people are not manifesting is because they have ADHD and are not focused on that. And it changes constantly. So they're constantly changing what the outcome of what they want is. If you manifest very quickly, that means that your focus of your wants and needs and emotionally is really like lasered in.
Yeah. Oh, that's fascinating. Yeah. I think you'd like this actually. I have a manifestation book that I have a milestone board and I have like all my visions that I want, that I dream for myself, right?
Amazing.
And they're small milestones because I also believe your small milestones feel realistic, so 100%. Then you can reach them quicker. And then every time they come real, I put them in my milestone book, which is like my manifestation book, and I write the date and when it happened and when it came true. I've been doing it for about 4 years from now because I think a lot of times I've been doing it for like 4 years now, and a lot of times the problem is we get so wrapped up in what's next that we forget all the things that we've already accomplished. And so for me, manifested.
That is 100%.
So
that is
really
accurate. I love that you do that. I wish I was more disciplined in that. That's amazing.
It's color-coded. I'm into it.
Do you have any Virgo in your chart too?
Probably. I'm like, it's color-coded. Oop, I got a pink one today. Yeah. It's like very funny.
I want to circle back on how you want to try everything.
Yeah, okay.
I think it's actually really special. It shows your fearlessness. It shows your curiosity. And I think, again, I'm always just advocating anybody that's like excited about challenges and fearlessness and really wanting to just explore this beautiful planet and this beautiful different versions of it, because that's what we're here for.
Yeah, absolutely.
For that play.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad that you decided to do a podcast.
Yeah,
because again, fun. I'll say what I said before of like, I've always seen you guys just not speaking and you already are emotionally connecting to people through not even saying anything, but just being. I appreciate that. Now I get to hear you speak because you're just as amazing speaking.
Also, back at you. Well, we're just gonna sit here and like love on each other.
And I love you.
But back at you, because it's like you're a medium, and before from 15 years of wedding photography, it's not always you frontward camera facing. It's the love that you're capturing. And that love is always there. You're just somehow capturing it for other people to see. And the love that is being captured is what these people experience every day. But you're capturing it and showing it to others. But you're not necessarily the subject. So it's fascinating how people can feel you and they can learn about you and learn about love through the content that you put out. And it's very similar in that regard, but also now with your storytelling and your docuseries, it's amazing. I love watching your journey. I lost my spot because I've literally just been hanging out. We've just been hanging out. I want to talk about your series that you wrote, Aphrodite's sister.
Yeah, I forgot that too.
Yeah, I want to hear
I've been writing
about
that since... So that's like my coming out story, but it morphed and got channeled into something else. But yeah, that was like my first version of storytelling. Like I started writing it when I was 18 about my best friends. And I've always believed that like anybody that I've met, I was obsessed with Greek mythology, like obsessed. And that actually goes into one of my past parallel lives of even how I was familiar and knew all the gods and goddesses automatically. And so I was always looking at people being like, oh, you have these attributes of this god or this goddess.
Okay.
And so I was like, I'm going to write a book about Greek mythology in modern time because I believe that we're all gods and goddesses. And then I hit college and I fell in love with this girl and I was like, this is the story, because I was always an empath.
Okay.
But I never felt my emotions.
Okay.
And as soon as I did, I felt others.
You felt others' emotions.
And I was completely neglecting, because of a people pleaser, neglecting my own, because your emotions were more important than mine. And so when I fell in love, every emotion, lust, passion, hate, anger, fear, just exploded from my chest. And through that, I started actually remembering more of my past lives. If you were to say that, they would enter through my dreams, they would enter through visions, and I would always vision of this woman in my dreams, and I realized I had loved her many times. And so I wrote about it. That the person that I met, I've known her for many lifetimes. And so that's what the book is about, is like these fantasy Greek mythology thing that she's the goddess of emotion but can't feel her own until she falls in love with a mortal girl that just like helps her remember who she is, and she realizes that she's this primordial goddess and that she's loved this person for like eons. Yeah,
I love it. I love it. And I also...
It's all based on off of that kind of true story if you were to believe that thing.
But I also believe, from everything I've learned about you today, which I think is so cool. I feel like I'm just opening up Pandora's box, right? Pun intended. Pandora's box.
I love that so much. Thank you for that.
I feel like it's all on brand as well, in the sense of like that is your truest self. And through all the storytelling that you're showing, you're talking like you love the cosmos, you love astrology, you love learning about different cultures and backgrounds, and it's just really cool.
True.
Like, and your storytelling is just like so you. It's very you. It is actually, it's authentic as shit. It's super authentic.
Thank you for saying that, because that's what I'm starting to realize even when I'm like doing any type of documentary. Yeah. Because I know I work on different documentaries too, and I'm always having to create from a space of my own perspective that I feel like has connected with everybody else. So I'm hoping my books are connected to other people.
I think you're also a dreamer, literally, who makes your dreams come true, literally, with the books. So you're also a realist. Yeah. So there you go. Yeah.
I never thought of it that way. God, look at you, just...
right back at you. That's so funny. I mean, I think it's really beautiful. Do you have any other things that projects that you're looking to go into, or?
Well, I'm going to continue my docuseries that is dissecting our LGBTQ plus community.
That's beyond the norms?
Yeah, that's beyond the norms. Okay. Exploring identity. The first episode is mask versus mask on mask. And now the second episode that we're in pre-production with is femme versus femme. Okay. And then I have 8 other episodes that I'm going to tie into that.
So exciting.
I'm very excited because I think that, again, we have so many nuances in our just in this community. Yeah. That I hope that people will start seeing that there's more similarities in every other different community.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
And again, I want people to feel seen.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So. I heard this quote the other day that if you don't see your story being represented, it's up to you to create it. And I think that is that is spot on. I think really what you're saying is like you are creating these mediums and these stories that people can digest that have never been able to see it before. I do think that with media these days being TV, movies, books, we are starting to see more and more queer representation. but we haven't gotten far enough in to really dive into what a queer character is and therefore attaching it to a real queer person.
I agree.
So there's always just like a surface level amount of queerness, you know.
It's getting there. I want to like really advocate that. And there's been some amazing people and friends, mutual friends, that actually been part of that, like being the person on screen that is changing that. But yeah, there's so many more nuances to our queer community that I really would hope to see on screen. I
love that. Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
I kind of want to talk to you as kind of like the final topic that I'm really interested in. I know that you're very much an empath, you're very compassionate, very in touch with not only your feelings but others. How do you find the balance with mental health, with taking care of yourself in the process of taking care of others?
I love this question so much because this is what I actually speak a lot about with even wedding photography, right? So growing up, I was a very, very, very emotionally high and like energy, angry child. And I realized like writing really helped, and that was that meditative state. So now when I was diving more into my spiritual self, every day I have to meditate.
Okay.
I meditate and really set my own intention, make sure that I know my feelings. And that sovereignty that I have of my own feelings is what really keeps me at bay when it comes to my mental health. Like, for instance, when we had the fires here in LA, oh, that was crazy. I felt everybody. Did you? How were you on that?
I live 2 blocks up from here, and we live next to Runyon Canyon, so the whole canyon right by my house was on fire.
But not only that, emotionally, didn't you feel our city?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It felt in a weird. It was a trauma, but it was also a community response, and I feel like people really came together, which was really beautiful. Really beautiful.
That's so true. But I just was wrecked. From that because I was feeling all my friends who lost their.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I was
wrecked. An overwhelming sense of empathy where it's like it's so hard to spread it.
Totally is overwhelming. So as soon as I feel that overwhelmingness, and especially not my own, I had to leave the city. I had to go into nature and ground myself.
Okay.
So it's, I think, like, I really hope for anybody out there that's like, I'm feeling all these emotions and I don't know what to do with them. I would always say 90% of them, it's the collective consciousness that you're feeling or somebody else around you.
Yeah.
Because your own feelings, if you are feeling them, I really think that you needed, like, no matter what, just ground yourself.
Yeah.
Ground yourself, meditate.
Yeah.
If you work out, do any type of meditative thing, whether it be washing dishes, folding laundry, writing, journaling, making sure that you get back to your own sovereign, like, emotions.
Yeah, I love that.
And that grounding. That has always saved me. I've actually been very, very good at my mental health because of those practices every day.
That's amazing. I feel like for me, at the end of last year, we talked a little bit about this with the state of the world. And I know it sounds really dramatic to say, but it is true.
Yeah.
I was feeling that collective trauma in a way.
Yep.
I don't mean it to sound dramatic, but it is.
No,
and
that's not dramatic. That's real stuff.
All of my friends from every walk of life were being targeted in different ways. The women in my life, the non-binary people in my life, the trans community. And then having to re-come out a little bit in a way to my family, because my family, who was once tolerant, is no longer tolerant. Yeah, it's kind of a thing where it's just like a whole thing where it was very much like I want to protect myself, but also I want to protect everyone else. How do I do that? And I felt very very sporadic because I was like, how do I help you? How do I help you? And as an empath, it was just like I couldn't ground myself. I lost grounding completely. So I burnt out.
Forgetting to ground yourself first.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I feel like, and that was a big reason why I had to pivot. I mean, last year I was telling you we were on the road 10 months of the year.
Yeah, that's
crazy. And so on top of that, emotions, and then also family issues coming up, and it was just a lot. So I think for me,
that is a lot understatement.
Yeah, right. And so for me, like, the grounding is this. Like, this is what I needed. Yeah. I wanted to be around people and being around stories, and I like what you just said, like regrounding yourself and like what truly makes your vibrational status like kind
vibrational. Of like what makes you excited, what lights you up. That's the thing, is like you always going back to you. I know this is another cliche, but like when it comes to the airplane, like, like the oxygen mask, making sure that you put yours on instead of, and then help someone else's. Like, when you are in your sovereignty, you automatically, unconsciously, are giving everybody else their own sovereignty in that sense.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. I mean, I also want to ask you, Because I do think your storytelling is its own form of activism. I feel like all of us are activists, and I feel like it's interesting how when people say the word activist, they're immediately like bracing themselves or something. And I'm like, but I think even just being out and queer and whatever your self-discovery journey is, it's a form of activism because you have to go against the norm, breaking the norm. And so I was curious, what is some of the practices that you do? Obviously the grounding yourself, but taking care of others, and how do you do that with responsibility?
Oh my God. I hope my friends think it's okay. I'm doing okay with them, because I can always feel when I'm out of alignment that I'm not at capacity to help my friends when they're going through their emotional stuff. Yeah. And I go through this, what is it? It's almost like this emotional ghosting, where I literally will fall off the face of the planet. And I hope my friends know that when that happens, it's because I'm recharging. Yeah. And so it's like, I will not answer anything because I'm so emotionally connected to like everything. And you being a Pisces, that's like in your nature, right? So it's like on airplane mode for sure. Yeah. Like turn off my phone. I reground myself. I have to work out every day. Even just being an athlete, I have to do some type of activity, feeling in my body before I'm ever like able to actually have my one-on-one time with my friends. Because I cannot have just like this surface, like let's hang out.
I want to have a deep conversation.
Like let's really reflect, and then let's play. Yeah. So it's like this whole thing, but. Oh my God, did that answer your question?
Yeah,
of like
it's funny that it's actually very interesting that you just said that, because I just last night was in my feels thinking about my best friend, and I was like, I love my best friend so much, and then it made me start thinking about all these things, and I was like, I think I realized I did that last year when they were going through something really hard, a life moment, and I wasn't there as much as I could have been, and it hit me now, a year later, and I was like, fuck, I really could have been a better friend. I really could have shown up better. And I think going to the responsibility aspect of what you just said is taking responsibility or accountability and being like, I'm sorry, I could have been a better friend to you. And I think that I just sent that text message last night. No, but
I don't know if I said it in that way. I love that you took that from, but like,
well, that's how I heard it. And I was like, maybe it's just because I just sent that message last night, because I had disappeared. I had disappeared in doing my own thing for so long because I didn't have an emotional capacity to do it.
And I think that's the main thing, because I'm even doing this. I think I know I'm doing this to a couple friends right now that I'm like, I cannot even handle you right now because you're actually not even listening to my advice. That's another thing, is that like I will be there for my friend, but if you're not like actually heeding my wisdom because I've been through these things or something, then I'm gonna just like chill for a bit.
Sometimes it takes other people a chance to go through it themselves.
That's another thing. I'll let them go through, and then I'll come back and be like, I'm sorry that I've said that a couple times to friends of like, I wasn't there emotionally to help you out through that thing, and I'm so sorry, but we're human. You got to charge yourself.
I think that communication, again, going back to the love language, it always is what can reground yourself and your relationships too. I love that. Well, I have a couple funsy questions because I know we just got deep, and I think we could have kept getting deep, but my timer is
that'll be next time.
Next time we'll have to come do this again. Would you rather?
Ooh.
Would you rather? Would you rather always have to say exactly what you're thinking, or have to hear everyone else's thoughts out loud?
Well, I already say a lot what I think. I would not want to hear what other people think
all the time.
Yeah, all the time. I'm realizing people are not as kind because this is like pretty fun stuff up here. And so I say I say it. Yeah. But
that's funny. Not. You're like, actually, I'm going to save that's mental health. That's practicing boundaries.
Yes.
We're not going to learn. Yes. All right. One more funsy one. Okay. What's one trend, could be any trend, that needs to stop immediately? Just a random trend.
Ooh, there's so many.
For the good of everyone else. Just a random trend. Mine would be skinny jeans.
I was just, okay, so...
I don't know why everyone hates skinny jeans. It's so good.
Me too. But the other day, somebody was wearing Uggs with like... Oh, honestly, I hate the fat shoes. I don't get it.
The big chunkies?
Big chunkies.
I'm dead.
Do you like them?
I mean, do these count?
No.
Okay.
No, there's other absurd ones. No.
Like... make you I wear these now.
That's not a good answer because I really don't care. But
no. I mean, just a random trend.
You know what's a random trend that I really think is, this is going to be a smart aleck one, just like hating on people. Like just hating.
That's such a bad trend.
It's so stupid.
Also canceling people for that.
Canceling. The canceling I will never get.
I don't get it.
We're not allowing people to just even be just people.
I agree.
But you can hold them accountable for some of the dumb shit they say, but then like don't cancel them. Just,
it doesn't give people a chance. Again, what we were talking
just
about.
the hating and the bullying is just like such like we're still doing that.
It's so 10 years ago.
Not even 10. We're talking about in the 1950s.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
that's true. That's
like,
true.
Come on.
Yeah, I'm like, oh yeah, that's actually deeper than. Well, yeah, I agree.
That's why I was like, let's turn
1950s,
this.
yeah.
But like, I know you were trying to make it fun, and we made it deep again.
It's still deep. That's it. That's who we are.
Wait,
okay.
what do you think?
I think I feel like that's a good point. I don't know.
To be fun, because I can't even think of it.
No, I can't either. When I ask these questions, people are like, your turn. I was like, I got nothing.
Yeah, because there's so many interesting trends. Yeah. I have my nieces that are like Gen Zers and younger that I'm like, they're saying these trends, and I'm like, I mean, I wonder, there was a trend when I was young that was like, I thought was the coolest. I don't know.
There's a trend that's happening with Christine's baby cousins right now, where they identify as she, her, and they're getting backlash now because it's not inclusive enough. Isn't that interesting?
What?
But like the kids are even.
Oh my God, I really hope that. See,
it's
that's
like backwards bullying.
Well, that's what I'm saying is
everyone,
like the pendulum swinging, and now it's getting to the point where it's like super hate.
Yeah.
And, actually, please insert that. Oh, sorry, I don't know. Because that is like what I really hope the younger generation is not going to be doing.
Yeah.
Like, we're all about inclusivity, but stop overcompensating.
Yeah, that's true. No,
let them be.
Yeah, it was very interesting to hear that because it's almost like we're so inclusive that we're not inclusive anymore.
Well,
isn't that interesting?
That's always going to be the polarity, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, let's cut that out.
Yeah, that's true. If you can tell everyone how to follow your I was like, oh, okay. If you could tell everyone in here who's listening, it's just you and I.
Everybody.
If you can tell everyone how to follow your journey, where to find your photography, where to find your books, all the things.
So you can find me on Instagram. I'm pretty active on Instagram, which is at Kelly Balch, Balch. You can find my books on Amazon. All my books, I have 3 of them. It's called Aphrodite's Sister. Actually, please get my books. Those are amazing. I had a great time writing them. I had a great time writing them. You can see my documentary series on YouTube, which is at Kelly Balch.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This was a lot of fun.
Yeah, honestly, you're amazing.
You're amazing.
No, you're
amazing.
You're amazing.
Wait, this is great. And that's a wrap on this episode of She Comes With Baggage. If you love this conversation, please make sure to follow She Comes With Baggage on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube for more content and behind-the-scenes moments. And if you're tuning in from Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or any other audio platform, please don't forget to leave a review. I love hearing from you, and your support helps keep these conversations going. And just remember, if you are carrying any baggage, you're not alone, and we're all more alike than you might realize. See you soon.